Cool. What do you want to get into first today? I guess we'll just talk about Sandman because I think that we probably have the most to talk about with that. And all right, dude, this is a perfect segue into my thoughts on the show. There were so many episodes, not so many. There's only like a dozen episodes in the whole show. Like what, 10? Was there 10? But there was a handful of them that literally didn't. Without them, you would get the same story. Like nothing would change.
Yeah, well, they're a little more episodic, which it's kind of the weird structure of the season where it feels like there's two stories that get told, kind of bridges those two stories together, or at least kind of is like a middle, almost palate cleanser one, and that's the in my opinion, the episode where they give the guy immortality, and he kind of goes back and forth, and it's like starts kind of following death around. So
right.
that's like very standalone, but I feel like that bridges the two stories because there's two very separate story arcs. The one with John D and him getting captured and getting his stuff back, and then the second half, the dream vortex, that whole story, and there's just the one episode like in the middle where it's very, very standalone, doesn't really tie into either of those.
But, right.
I mean, my thought is there's two arcs to the series or the season where one is like the one where he gets captured and he gets his stuff back, but it's almost like him learn, and then I think it actually kind of finishes up almost with that episode with Death and the friend that he makes, where they're like he learns, like he becomes the like he starts he obviously he's captured, he hates humans and what they're doing and what they did to him, and he almost kind of comes to terms of understanding, like empathizing a little bit more with humans and where they're coming from and what his role is in interacting with humans. Like they need the humans more than humans need them,
right.
And then so there's like that story, and then I feel like the second part with the dream vortex is that whole story, but I feel like that one gets focused on him learning to be more empathetic toward his creations, because the librarian, he can almost like cast her aside as far as like I can do this myself. He that the other nightmare that kind of helps the boy kind of forget about his trauma and gives him like basically makes him, he's a superhero, and just kind of and then the way things end with the Corinthian kind of like treating his creations a little lesson and not really appreciating what they are. They're
right
for it.
Right.
And coming to the end, like, okay, I appreciate who they are, what I created, and kind of coming out of that of, okay, there's things can change. Like maybe I made mistakes with things I made. Maybe things can become better than I imagined.
Right.
So I feel there's two stories. It is a jarring a little way to have, like, because I think we're so used to having stories that are just like one big story throughout a season, where this one, where either a series is episodic, where it's like, there's a lot of little smaller things like episodic, thinking of Law and Order or something. There's like one story that gets told, and then at the end of that, so that story doesn't continue over,
right,
other than backstories and stuff. Or you just end up getting one really long arc story that continues throughout the season. This one kind of a mashup of two. It's like two really long episodes with one like episodic episode in the middle.
right.
So it was a strange structure, but the only thing I can say, I never follow the comics, but everything I've read about it is like they've been trying to make it for a while, and they say the comics have been or assumed to be unfilmable. So the fact that it's actually
wait, what's that? Unfilmable?
I said it was like unfilmable. Like there's no way they could capture what the Sandman was and put it on film, make anybody understand what it is.
Right.
So I think that assumption and then what came out of it makes some sense. That maybe it is a little confusing and it's not perfect, but maybe it's better than people expected. but again, I don't have any context to like, the overall story. I'll say it is the tone's a little weird between the two main stories, because obviously it's darker in the first half, and then the second half of the series you've got a lot of these side characters, and they're like cartoony. I'm looking at the cast here, like the Hal Carter and those like goth twins, the Ken and Barbie. That whole like house is cartoonish. Where like the first half of the season was pretty dark, and then you got these cartoonish characters.
Right.
It was like, I mean, I'm sure they're from the story and they're characters people like, but it just seems like a little out of place with like having very corny characters. They're fun characters, but they just the kind of tone. Like I was expecting like Unity Kincaid, so Rose's great grandmother or whatever she is. She was kind of weird too. I'm like, is she a dream? Like, is that whole
dude
thing?
that was, I was waiting for that to kind of flip into something completely different, that I almost like, I didn't trust her character almost.
Yeah, it felt like either she wasn't real or she had some ulterior motives, and they turned out to be nothing. I mean, that way that kind of got resolved too was a little weird.
Right.
Where she all of a sudden like got a book of what life would have been like if that didn't happen, and figured out, she was supposed to be the vortex, and they like fixed it.
What her life would have been like. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you said so much just now in the last 5 minutes, by the way. There was so much to, like, things to kind of grasp on what the show actually is and whether it's consistent or not. I like, okay, first of all, I want to go through the cast before we kind of go into, like, what the show was, and whether you need to be watching all the episodes, or if you wanted to, like, I think we could literally come up with like 4 or 5 episodes, and I'm not gonna, I don't remember them, but I definitely think you can watch like 4 or 5 episodes and get a pretty good gist of what the entire season was. I don't know who this guy is, the guy who played Dream Morpheus. I've never seen him before. I thought he did a great job. Patton Oswalt. Now, I actually looked at the cast before I started watching it, and then when I saw his name, I was like, dude, I love Patton Oswalt. Like, this is going to be cool. But he's such like a... I mean this in like the best kind of way, but he's such like a character actor. Like, he's almost cartoony. Like, he always just plays like a kind of a sidekick or kind of a filler character. Again, in the best kind of way, because I very much like Patton Oswalt. And it was like, he comes in as the Crow, right? Matthew the Raven. And I literally was thinking, like, I was picturing him as a rat the whole time. Like, he could literally be a cartoon rat. He could be, what's Ratatouille's name? That's not the name of the... Remy. He could be Remy. In that, like, I don't know if he played... Do you think Patton Oswalt plays himself all the time?
Mostly. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of voices. I know, I didn't really watch it, but he was the voice of, I think, called MODOK. There's like an X-Men Marvel cartoon where he's just like, he looks just like characters, basically looks like a giant head with small limbs.
Okay. Oh, okay.
He's in that. There was like a, I don't think it was claymation, but it kind of had a style like claymation.
Okay.
And he was in that, but I think he doesn't really throw his voice very much.
Right.
He's very similar. He doesn't really.
So I just pictured him the whole time watching, and he isn't in every episode. He's barely in half of them, and when he is in it, he's only in it for a few minutes out of like a 45-minute, 50-minute episode. And then by the time the end of the season, it made sense. I'm like, okay, he was just a normal Joe Schmo human being. He was just a dude that they didn't really go into details whether he dies or it was like, hey, you're now going to become a Raven. I don't know.
It sounded like he was human at one point and died, and then now got made into a Raven.
Right.
There's probably logic in the comics that tie that together, but
and then and the fact that he started talking, I was like, wait, Jessipe was the original Raven, right?
I don't know.
Was something like that. And you never heard the original Raven talk, but I'm like, okay, that's cool. You get David Thewlis. Why do I know him? I at first when I saw him, I thought
he's Remus in the Harry Potter movies.
That's okay. I kept when I saw him, I was like, oh, he's Mr. Weasley, but he's not. But I knew he was in Harry Potter. I just couldn't.
He's also he's Ares in Wonder Woman.
In the first one or the second one?
First Wonder Woman, yeah, he's Ares. Like you don't know it till the end, but he's Ares.
I don't remember that. A bunch of kind of unknown. I recognize Jolie Richardson.
Jenna Coleman was on Doctor Who.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that. Bro, what's funny? This guy, the guy that played the Corinthian, I just watched a movie called not Payback, Vengeance with
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
BJ Novak.
Yeah.
And that's a strange movie because you don't really get the vibe of that movie till the end, but he crushed it in that movie, and I've never seen him before. And then I watched it like a day or two.
In Logan.
Yeah, and he's in Logan. He's the bad guy in Logan. Yeah, that's right.
He was also in Narcos.
Oh, okay, I haven't.
He did the first 2 seasons of Narcos, so he's been around a lot.
Yeah, I like him. He did a good job. So the cast, I was like, okay, I'm not really quite sure what to think of this. So, dude, it was so slow. I'm gonna be honest, I was possibly gonna give up after like episode 2 or 3. And I kind of started liking it a little bit more just because it did hold my interest enough to be like, where are they going to take this? Is the first 2 or 3 episodes was about him getting all his items back, right? He gets kidnapped as the Dream, as the Sandman, and they take his special ability. Like, they basically take his abilities away, which are 3 items, right? His helm, his ruby or gem, and then his bag of sand.
Sand, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, is it going to be like, and all these different people wanted it for, right? The Corinthian wanted it, and then the mage in the beginning wanted, the mages, whatever they called them, wanted it, and then the baby mama wanted it, and I was like, dude, is this going to be like Game of Thrones where it's like the game of the dream items, like it's entire season of all these other people are going to want it. And then that's
pretty quick.
Yeah, they got by the time that the end of the second episode or the beginning of the third, like that entire story peaked and then it ended, and I was like, oh, okay, well now, and then the momentum shifted from kind of fast paced to they got to start all over again with a new story, and I felt like that was kind of how it was. It was like this thing's happening and then they figured it out, and then this thing happened and then they figured it out, and it's not one of those shows that I don't think, if you look at the episodes that are actually story driven, that carries a story throughout the whole season, none of them stand alone. Not any of the episodes stand alone. You have to basically watch them all together for them to be significant. And then the ones that were standalone were great, but they had absolutely nothing to do with the story. They were just kind of like background lore that you're watching. The episode with him and his sister Death, where they just walked around England and she just was like, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, which was a very dark episode, dude. That was a tough episode for me to watch. I was not enjoying that one. But like, it's a great story of like, that's what death in this world, in this comic world, that's what death is like. That's what she does as her position. And then, like you said, the episode with the guy that lives forever, every 100 years, which like the concept of that was so freaking well done. How did they pull that stuff from the comics?
I think it's all from the comics, yeah.
That was so well done, dude. I did not want that episode to end, but then I knew that it had to end, and it ended so brilliantly because then it was in like 1989 or whatever it was, and he's like, where's my friend? He's not here, but he was captured.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like, and I totally forgot about that, and then they brought it back to the very first episode, and it was so like that episode was so and what's so brilliant about that is you hear, I mean, it's not like you hear people talk about it, but like you know, the understanding of it is if you live forever, is that, are you going to be a miserable human being where you can't wait to die? Are you going to actually enjoy it? Are you going to live through tragedy and still want to live? Like how are you going to be? And the character arc in that episode was freaking brilliant. It was so well done because he went through every single phase you could think of as a human being that would go through and live forever. He went through, dude, this is great, man. The last 100 years, we have a new chimney and we have these paper cloths you could put up your nose and prevent you from smelling the shit all day. And then the next episode is, hey, I'm becoming better, I'm becoming richer, I'm thriving in life. Then the next time they meet in the tavern is, dude, I lost my wife, I lost my kids. The last 80 years of my life has been absolutely miserable. I haven't wanted to live the last 80 years. I'm starving. Then he go another 100 years, then he's back to the point of like, you know, now I understand what the meaning of, you know, it's almost like, what is the meaning of life? You don't really know unless you live that long, and then you understand the purpose of being alive and what you want to do. And then when they meet up and he's like, you're late, you know, and the dream finally shows up because he escapes. That was so well done. The arc of that story. I would watch that episode again for sure. That was by far my favorite episode of the whole show.
My favorite episode was the diner one, which is kind of the conclusion of the first story.
And that was another standalone.
Well, it was a standalone, but then it like, I think at the end is what wraps up the whole John D story, where he kind of gets the Ruby back because Dream shows up at the diner at the
right, and he crushes it, and then he gets his ability back. It's such a slow
burn.
Dude.
It just keeps getting oddly darker and darker, and just all this like personal stuff. You're like, what does that have to do with anything? And he kind of keeps tweaking with the Ruby and kind of seeing where he can push people, and he just gets really when the waitress was talking to the cook, he was like, yeah, I like when you fall asleep and I go,
bro,
I have sex with you. What?
Dude, I was like, and it seemed so freaking dark and evil.
Yeah.
But that was such a well-written episode because it just shows the true humanity of people, of like, we're all kind of evil on, not evil, just we all have this persona, right? This shell of what we like want people to see us as, instead of actually like living how we would like to be, or we actually want life to be. And like this persona that people put on is so the opposite of what is actually going on in your fucking head. And it's pretty fucking accurate. Like, it's to an extreme. It's all to the extremes, but it all is so like relevant to like an everyday person. Like, dude, I was like, oh my god, like, and you could almost foresee what's gonna happen after a point, like when the husband is in the kitchen and then the wife is talking, you're like, dude, she's unhappy. In real life, unhappy marriages happen where they kind of move on and they just want to be happy and they find their happiness in another. And I'm like, even before it happened, I'm like, this lady in the diner is going to like put the moves on this young guy. This young guy is going to be captivated by this strong older woman who's attractive, and they're going to get like, it all started clicking, and I'm like, what the heck? I almost felt like Desire. I thought Desire, the kind of the evil being, like I don't know if that's a brother or sister.
I think it's designed to be,
just an entity,
but it's not to be,
labeled. Yeah, which is so smart. I thought first, I was like, later, is Desire gonna be like, yo, I had something to do with that. That was all me, by the way. I thought that was really interesting. That the the character Desire was pretty interesting towards the end too. But yeah, man, that diner scene, I think I texted you right after, like, that was fucked up,
you're
dude.
Like, that was messed up.
That was a fucked up episode. That was rough to watch. So they're
super. I mean, obviously went like, okay, what if we just,
bro, they all die.
or what if we just took everything to the like final degree, and what if you took it to the extreme of like you do exactly what you want to do,
right?
Have no inhibitions at all,
right?
And care what other people think or feel.
No remorse or anything. You just do it.
Killing yourself or killing each other.
Right.
So, well, we have maybe the kind of personas that we put on and the limitations that we have. Maybe some ways are healthy and some ways that they are. To like have some empathy and understand where, people are coming from.
Right.
And trying to, make people like you and kind of understand you and get on the page. Maybe, maybe there's something not good about being fake, but there is maybe something healthy about having that.
Right.
Barrier you can like have, social, just go along society, so everyone doesn't just destroy each other.
Right.
Where they want.
That's such a good point too. Yeah, it's like it is healthy to a point. And then they're all like, "Hey, I didn't want this," and he's like, "Well, you wanted it obviously because you did it. Like all I wanted you was to speak the truth and to be honest. I didn't manipulate you guys to kill each other." But they all like crave to like be honest and like live the way they want it to be. They just all fucking kill each other and then kill themselves if they weren't killed by someone else, they kill themselves. And I was like, dude, this is dark. Like, that was rough. And then he just goes and just takes the tub of ice cream and he's just eating the ice cream at the end.
Ice cream, yeah.
And I was like,
I forgot what happened. Like what the waitress was doing. She was like doing something where she was like burning her arms without feeling it. But I forgot what she was doing.
She's a writer, right?
Oh, she's burning. Yeah, she's burning her.
She's burning her pages with not even caring if she's burning her arm. Yeah, dude, that was a crazy episode. And then we have what's her name, Brienne of Tarth,
as Lucifer,
which awesome. That
was a good the battle. I mean, it wasn't just straight up fight. It was like a battle of the wits, and the way that ended.
Right.
That was great.
Right. I'm a snake. I'm a bird that kills snakes. I'm like, you know what reminded me of? I don't know if it's the scene of of Sword in the Stone, the Disney Sword in the Stone. How well do you know that movie?
Forever.
Okay, hold on. It's a battle of wits, dude. Right, so it's a battle of wits. So it literally, I thought of this the entire time. That part.
Madam, just a minute. This is not.
All right. So, anyways, battle of wit. So it just goes on from there. But it's like, come up with the concept of like, how are you going to defeat your enemy at this point? What are you going to come up with that can counter the other person over and over again? And then I forgot how they, she went from this to that, and then I forgot the last one she said, but when he was like, oh, okay, and he was like dying, he's like, hope. Like, I'm now hope.
Yeah.
Like, what defeats hope? And, dude, it was so
well, and it's
smart.
telling because the line he says at the end when he's like, well, maybe I don't have power, but dreams do, because what power does hell have if not for people dreaming of heaven? And that's kind of the idea. Like, she's been battling the fact that she hasn't been able to kill hope.
Right.
Even people who are damned to her realm still have hope. Even if it's futile, they still have hope. She's never been able to squash it. So it was kind of like perfect of like, okay, Satan hasn't been able to kill hope all this time.
Right. and then they bring her back at the last episode when the other lords of hell get together and it's like, okay, you got to take action. Like, it's time to bring down Dream and all of the other lords. Like, we're gonna crush everyone, and we're gonna this entire realm or world. We're gonna rule. It's all gonna be hell. So, very good with. It actually did have an ending, and it left open a couple doors. It left open, you get Desire, what's going to happen with Desire, and then you get the devil of, like, what are they going to conjure together to start trying to take over. And then it's going to be a battle of, like, pure good versus evil. Because really it was like, this was kind of good versus evil, but it's kind of like he created a nightmare. The nightmare got kind of the nightmare wanted to be human, but he's just an evil being. He's an evil entity because he's a nightmare, so he couldn't help himself.
And he kind of explains, like, that was what your goal was, your nightmare, but you're meant to make people face certain things that they maybe may not want to, and that's what your role is. Your role is just terrify, be a monster. It's to make people learn.
And he's been around for over 100 years, so, like, all of the dude, and I love like the underground world of anything.
Serial convention.
Dude, I thought that was so interesting. I wanted there to be 100 episodes just on this underground world of, like, serial killers.
There's like open about it. I mean, they hide it, but they're also like, yeah, we have clubs.
Right.
Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows their pseudonyms.
Right.
Like, you know, they get around. The weird name is that one guy's name was Funland.
Right. I was about to say. That was so messed up. It's so, like, do you think that actually exists? Something similar? Obviously not in, like, broad daylight where they go have a convention, but do you think something like that exists?
Not to that degree. Although I don't know. I mean, definitely not to that degree, but
right.
I don't think there are other, like, serial killers who meet other serial killers and have, because the whole idea is to, like, I think keep it to yourself. Like, once you start interacting and sharing what you do, then I would think start time. So I can't imagine that really happens. I mean, it's a fun concept.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't. I'll tell you, I hope it doesn't happen.
Right.
Or they don't have a meeting and exchange ideas.
All the different panels, bro. I was like, this is so extreme. Like, this is one of the darkest things I feel like Netflix has made in a while. I don't know, but that was so fascinating, man. That was really cool to watch. They all have their nicknames. And then that guy that is like, he's the blogger that literally just showed up to the boogeyman. He's like, no, I'm literally here to try to get a story and get my blogs. Which he's an idiot, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like, he's literally telling him, hey, look at my blog, and his face is on the blog. Like, what? Or not look at my blog, but look at this guy's blog.
Yeah, I think what he didn't anticipate is that the Corinthian knew the boogeyman was dead, probably because he probably killed the boogeyman. So I think he maybe made the mistake of trying to share that blog knowing that, like, he already knew that guy was a fake as he was talking to him.
Right.
So the fact that he tried to share that blog with him made him realize, okay, this is what his image.
Yeah. So that was probably the most interesting in terms of, like, suspense episode, right? Because you're all like, dude, they're literally in this world of just, hundreds of serial killers, and they're just trying to escape. So that was really cool. The story with Rose Walker, Lyda Hall, this lady right here.
Oh, with her baby?
With her baby. That was sad.
Yeah, that was sad. Well, what was unresolved was that Dream said he was going to come with the baby.
Yeah.
The baby was born, and they don't address that.
Yeah. Which I thought it was kind of went into full circle of, like, okay, Dream now understands, like, people do change and the world can change and people can change. He brought back that nightmare. as a dream.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know. I think there's a
I
good.
don't know if he would allow a dream baby to exist, though. That's the thing. There's a baby that's a dream that's out in the world that, you know. But also, I mean, I guess that's the thing. What's weird that they kind of gloss over. I don't know the logistics of it because it makes I don't want to know because it kind of makes me sad to think about. But like what happened with Unity and how she got pregnant and how did she get pregnant?
Oh
Well,
God,
she was dreaming for 80 years. Like
no.
how did
She
that
had the
happen?
baby before she fell into the deep sleep. I think.
She was a kid. She was a kid
Well, she
when
was a
she fell
kid.
into the deep sleep.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, she's young, and that's what I'm like. Did somehow he like enter her dream and she like kind of the same way that Lyta did, or did something more nefarious happen and they just like don't gloss it? That was the other thing too. The stuff that happens with Jed, and that shit's dark. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden he's like hanging out with Corinthian, like, "Hey, I want some
I want
ice
some
cream."
ice cream. Yeah,
Like, what? You've just been abused and chained up in a basement.
right.
Now you're like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out at this convention. Like there's some dark stuff that they gloss over.
Yeah, they
That,
kind of had to a little
I mean,
bit.
they had to, but it was like, yeah, that's like you think about some of that stuff. You're like, they did some dark stuff happens, and they just don't really
Right.
address kind of
That's a
the
good point.
aftermath of what like Unity never thought like, how did I get pregnant while I was sleeping?
Right. Very good point. Yeah, that's okay. Well, oh, so what? Yeah, so Unity was she fell asleep and never woke up, and she was like what 13. So did she
Yeah,
dream?
her
Was she a
parents-
13-year-old kid for like 70 years or something?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
I
then
don't
she
know.
woke up old.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a good point. You know what I want to do? I want to go through. I want to see some of the. Oh, okay. So the fact that they were calling her Constantine the whole time was
That's pretty-
driving me nuts, dude. I wanted to just take a pencil and stab myself in the eye. I was like, Constantine, like. Here's the thing. It is a comic. We don't know. It takes place in England. It was it was an American person, right? Constantine? American
No, she's
chick?
British.
Or was she British?
She's British, yeah.
Okay. Maybe then it's correct. Maybe they changed because I think it's Constantine is I think a male in the comics.
Yeah, well, it's John Constantine, the
John,
same character.
right.
It's in-
Keanu Reeves' character. Yeah.
They changed the gender. I think a lot of things in this they changed either race or gender,
Yeah.
but
It's
I think
fine.
it was and I think I read something where like the showrunners and Neil Gaiman, who's the writer, they wanted to they intentionally wanted to take it out of from like what the expectation was as far as like trying to just make everything as it was in the comic and have more diversity and
Right.
not being someone who's read the comic and sticking to that. I don't, not someone who is a fan of the comic. It's great. I thought the casting
Yeah.
was good.
And she wasn't. Constantine was not in the story more than an episode or two.
Yeah, she was in the one with the sand, and then her relative showed up in the episode where they meet every 100 years.
Correct. Right.
What I thought, and what maybe a little kind of, I don't know, bugged me, but that the episode with the sand where they're with Joanna Constantine and they find her ex-lover, and she doesn't have like they were together for a while, maybe like 6 months or something, not a long time, but she seemed to love her. She doesn't have a lot of reaction to any of that.
Like she kind of got over it pretty fast.
Yeah, she's like seeing her and like I'm gonna give you a kiss and then walk away. There didn't seem to be a lot of depth to that.
Right.
Of like, okay, this is someone, yeah, maybe I walked away, maybe I'm a shitty person, but I still loved her, and then just kind of went like, oh yeah, she's hurting, do something about it. Okay,
Right. I mean, now we're getting into like the nitty gritty of it, but Yeah. Also, there were bigger priorities on the list than, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. I'm gonna start hooking up with you while the Lord of Dreams is downstairs waiting to get his, his sand back or whatever they're doing. And like, bro, it's that part kind of threw me off a little bit.
Well, that was a dream. That was she was stuck. She was outside the door. She hadn't even entered yet. She just kind of the sand was somehow like had sucked her into a dream. So it was a little like jarring,
Wait, Constantine?
Yeah, she
was it a
stuck,
dream?
She wasn't that whole like romantic thing that
Yeah.
she had with her. That was all because Dream comes back in, and she's not even inside the apartment yet. She's like standing outside
I must
the door.
have looked away for. See, that was another thing. There was so much depth and little details that you need to be paying attention to, that if you don't catch those little moments, you're going to be thrown off. And that must have been one of the things that I looked away for a second. I looked at my phone or got up for a second. And
yeah. So because it was, so they are having that moment, and then, I forget the Raven's name, but he was like, "Hey,
Matthew.
what I can tell you right now, they're human. I used to be human. The last thing they're caring about is anything that's important to you right now.
Right.
So they're probably up there just not even caring about what the urgency is. So you should go check on them."
Right.
And so all of a sudden the dream starts turning bad. Like, right, she's talking to her, and she's like, the conversation turns dark, and her face kind of starts like melting.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she wakes up, and Dream is there.
Right.
Tells her it was the sand. So she was having a dream because she was so close to the sand that it was kind of sucking her into a dream.
Yeah.
And when she realized that her lover was basically just laying in the bed, I mean, for 6.
Right.
Which I had to tell. I was talking to somebody else about the show, and they're like, "I don't understand how she became so old. Like, she didn't grow old. She just became emaciated. She just hadn't eaten or drinking any 6 months. She was just unnaturally alive.
Right.
So she wasn't like old. She just had
malnourished.
Just like a Holocaust victim. Just like everything was just like sunken in and like no, mass at all. So
right.
It was. That was interesting. It was.
Yeah.
It just kind of ended weird, but.
Yeah, but I think as a whole, I think it's really good. I think the standalone episodes were pretty cool. Like I said, I mean, I would describe the show. It's like it's like Black Mirror for some of the episodes, and then like Twilight Zone a little bit of here and there. You're like, wait, what? It's kind of like what ifs. I think that's the concept of Black Mirror, right? It's a bunch of what ifs. What if this were to happen? What if this was created, And the beginning of the show with the whole mages?
Yeah, like a mage, a magic user.
Okay, so the mage in the beginning, like, so the world used to at one point believe in mages?
Well, I think in this world it almost seems like they still do.
But it's supposed to be like our world. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, but there seems to be, like, at least in that time period, it seems like it wasn't like, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It seems like magic exists. Isn't like super common, but people understand that it exists somewhat. I don't know for sure. I haven't read. I would just kind of, at least that first episode for sure seemed like there are a lot more people who were aware of,
right, that there's magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what I kind of was like, okay, so it's a world of like people believe in this, fantasy, anything could happen, magic happens, spells can be casted, what have you. And then as it was going, I was like, but it's like our world. Like it's it's modern day. Like it was just kind of throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah, well, the only maybe that my perception of that is that nobody seems like utterly like terrified or shocked about things happening. They just kind of accept it.
Right, like the diner scene, right? Like you and me today, if that strange thing were to happen and we're in a diner, and some old guy is like, very, very soon I'm gonna make the world be. I'm gonna change the world, and it's all gonna be honest, and everyone's gonna be honest and truthful. And then an hour goes by and shit goes down. I would never go to that old guy today and be like, "You're the reason why all of this is happening. You did change the entire world. We're all truthful." Like I wouldn't, So really cool episode, The Diner. But at the end, he's like, now the dream was like, now I have to go and do everything. Now I have to go fix the world. And I was like, crap, here we go. Now we're gonna go episode through episode. He's gonna change everything back, but they didn't. It was like assumed that he already fixed everything the day later, which is I thought was great.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. It was weird that. I don't think it can change the world, but it was like, yeah, there's like a bunch of aftermath. Because what I think is kind of glossed over, and it kind of presents itself more at the end of the episode as he's walking away, and kind of there's a bunch of fires everywhere. Is that as that episode goes on in the diner, and you hear the TV,
right?
That every like good thing happening, all of a sudden the world's going to shit,
right?
At the end, and then like it's like the world, like. Yeah, with the hell, and like he just kind of let it, like he didn't do anything about it.
100%. No, but like he actually was like, "I'll fix it tomorrow," and I'm like, "Wait, so for the next 12 hours, how many thousands and tens of thousands and possibly millions of people are going to be murdered and killed right now?" But I'll fix it tomorrow. But let's just ignore that part. But it's still like it didn't drag us through the whole process of like. Reversing what he did. Like we're just gonna move on and continue with the story, which I was happy with, because I was afraid it was gonna get stale. Like it was just gonna kind of okay, here we gotta go through this whole process, but it was fine. No, I was cool with it. What would you give this out of 10?
7.
You give it a 7 out of 10?
I liked it. I'm not as I'm harder to give.
Yeah, I like to think I'm a pretty like harsh critic, but I think you are maybe a little bit more of a harsher critic than me. I would maybe give it. It's hard to say because some of the episodes are unlike the rest of the season. Like the diner scene, the diner episode, and then the tavern episode are literally a standalone shows in its own way. Like I would give both of those episodes like 8 out of 10. If there was like a series of like, if it was on its version of Black Mirror, I would get, and it was just all their standalone crazy stuff of the dream, dealing with weird situations through the history of our world. Like this episode now, he has to deal with this person, or he has to deal with this entity, or deal with this demon. Like they all. Like, if that was the show, which I was the way you explained it in the beginning, I thought that's what it was going to be. I would give that an 8 out of 10. But for the actual story itself and for everything, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. But yeah, that tavern episode was so freaking fantastic. Okay.